This is Power Hour with Gabriella Power.
Hello and welcome to Power Hour. I'm Gabriella Power. Thank you for joining us. Coming up on the show, Democrats leap to the defense of narco-terrorists.
There is no such thing as a narco-terrorist. There are very, very bad narcotics people, cartels, etc.
The media covers for Tim Walz, refusing to mention his name amid revelations of the state's shocking fraud scandal. And New York City just got a little brighter. Vision of Charlie Kirk is being played in Times Square on repeat. If you're a homeowner in America, you need to listen to this. The FBI has been warning about a type of real estate fraud on the rise called title theft, and your equity is the target. Here's how it works. Criminals forge your signature on a single document, use a fake notary stamp and file it with the county. And just like that, on record, they own your home. Using your ownership, they can take out loans against your equity or even sell your property. And you won't know about it until foreclosure or collection notices show up in the mail. That's why I've partnered with Home Title Lock, so you can protect your equity and find out today if you're already a victim. Use my promo code POWER at hometitlelock.com. You'll get a free title history report and a free trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring of your title records, urgent alerts to any changes. And if fraud occurs, their US-based restoration team will spend up to $1 million to fix it. Don't be a victim. Protect your equity today. That's hometitlelock.com, promo code POWER, or use a link below. Joining us now is filmmaker Ami Horowitz. Ami, it's great to see you again. Let's start with the Democrats leaping to defend narco-terrorists following deadly strikes on suspected drug vessels heading to America in international waters. Here's Democrat Adam Smith.
But people on a boat in the middle of the Caribbean carrying cocaine are not a direct threat to the lives of our service members or Americans.
Tens of thousands of people were killed last year because of drugs, but apparently narco-terrorists trafficking illegal drugs into America, that's, of course, no threat at all to the American people. And here's Connecticut Democrat Jim Himes.
There is no such thing as a narco-terrorist. There are very, very bad narcotics people, cartels, etc., but they're desperate to make this look like it's ISIS or Al-Qaeda because that's the very thin line on which their illegal use of the United States military to take these people out resides.
And here's Democrat Jack Reed.
You know, one of the factors that drives use in the United States is demand. And most narco traffickers are not in those boats. They pay people to do that, and usually people who are not significantly involved with narco trading. It's the way they make money.
Just a way they make money. Ami, what do you make of the Democrats' argument here?
I mean, that was like a parade of morons that you just displayed for us. I mean, a few things. First of all, I mean, you were right. Tens of thousands of people die a year from overdoses. Just to be clear, it's over 85,000 people, right? It's a very large number of people. And to say that you don't have, it's not, you know, self-defense, the only way you could be in a state of war is just nonsense, right? If they are a threat to the United States, they don't have to be literally a direct threat of self-defense, right? Mm-hmm. Of course, that is legal for one to strike another group. So that's ridiculous. And to say there's no narco-terrorism, what are these people talking about? And it just so, again, it's another example the Democrats taking the wrong side of an issue that the majority of Americans are on that side, right? Like immigration. It was another 80-20 issue that they failed on and it cost them the election. They continue to go down the road of taking positions that are clearly not in the best interest of the U.S. and the electorate is not interested in this. Look, I think this whole thing's connected. Remember that video those Democrats did saying that you should not, if you're a military soldier, you should not obey illegal orders. It's all connected together, right? They're using this as an example of saying, see, we told you. Here's exactly what we're talking about. They're trying to use that as a blunt force object against the president. But the problem is just not taking, right? It's not the right path to go. Now, having said that, in this particular example, we're not even sure what went on. it is true that it is illegal, right, based on the Geneva Convention, right, on the rules of war. It is a war crime if after you struck a boat, there are people who are no longer combatants, right? They're now, in this case, hanging on to the boat. You are not allowed to strike them again. That's true. But the question is, we don't know where that came from, right? We don't know that Hegseth specifically said, I want you to kill all those people after the strike, or whether General Bradley did it on his own. We're not clear. I don't know why it happened, but I know that the second strike wasn't exactly kosher. We have to find out what went on. But they're jumping on it and assuming as if, and reporting that it was actually called for by Hegseth, which we just don't know to be true.
And Hegseth has denied, some of the comments that were reported by the Washington Post, and he says that he stands by the combat decisions of a military commander involved in the deadly strike on that suspected drug vessel. And he also says that we have just begun striking terrorists. Take a listen.
As I've said, and I'll say again, we've only just begun striking narco boats and putting narco terrorists at the bottom of the ocean because they've been poisoning the American people. And Joe Biden tried to approach it with kid gloves. And allowed them to come across the border, cartels take over community, 20 million people, hundreds of thousands of Americans poisoned. And President Trump said, no, we're taking the gloves off. We're taking the fight to these designated terror organizations, and it's exactly what we're doing. So we're stopping the drugs, we're striking the boats, we're defeating narco terrorists.
Donald Trump joined in there supporting Pete Hegseth and added that plenty of drugs that were coming into America via the sea, they are now down significantly. Hegseth also went on to say that this is about deterrence, and of course it is. I mean, the amount of drug boats coming into America, they're slowing down. So what do you make of this? Obviously, Hegseth is being attacked. There's a lot of controversy around what the Trump administration is doing. Do the American people support this, or is this going to impact Trump politically?
No, they do support this. And what he said was all exactly correct. This is an issue that is afflicting this country. And by the way, this is not just a bunch of people trying to make money by selling drugs, right? This is actually more of a strategic thing by China, who is trying to create social upheaval in this country. A lot of these things that are used, the chemicals that are used for these drugs come from China. So this is a larger problem that we're facing. It's not just about making money and war on drugs like we had in like the 80s and 90s. This is really more of a, not just a tactical, but a strategic issue for us vis-a-vis China, South America, who are trying to degrade our way of life and trying to create a lot of issues for our country societally, which is exactly what they're doing.
Let's talk about Tim Walz, who is, of course, at the centre of this massive fraud scandal because under his watch in Minnesota, hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars have reportedly been going to Somalia. Now, US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has launched a federal investigation into claims that Minnesota tax dollars were siphoned to the terrorist group Al-Shabaab under the Biden administration and Governor Tim Walz. An allegation, he said, demands urgent scrutiny. Now, this fraud scandal, Army, has raised concerns around what else is going on in Minnesota under Tim Walz. And Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem revealed today that half of all visa holders in Minnesota submitted fraudulent applications. She said, you told me to look into Minnesota and their fraud on visa and their programs. 50% of them are fraudulent, which means that wacko Governor Tim Walz either is an idiot or he did it on purpose, and I think that he's both. So, Army, I mean, what do you make of this?
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I think that is both. And of course, look, just because you had a visa approved, there's no law that says you have to be in this country. And if certainly you were trying to, you fraudulently try to acquire a visa, you can and probably should be shipped out of this country. This is an incredible, really a truly incredible story that's barely being covered by the mainstream media. And when it is, it's being covered all wrong. You know, I'll talk about that in a second. But like, again, you're talking about $1 billion was stolen through fraud from the American people. And just in terms of context, right? What $1 billion here and $1 billion there, all of a sudden we're talking about real money. $1 billion is more than 4 times what Minneapolis, the biggest city in Minnesota, spends on their entire law enforcement budget, okay?
Wow.
And that, you know, that money was spent, as they said, on with luxury cars and real estate in Turkey and Nigeria. And by the way, I looked it up. Your real estate dollars go very far in Nigeria. I can only imagine what kind of palaces, what kind of villas they're paying with that. And oh yeah, of course, like you said, it's going to terrorist organizations like Al-Shabaab. What I find so curious is that they stole $1 billion, but only gave a few million to Al-Shabaab. Like that's less than 1% of what they stole. I mean, come on, guys. If you really feel strongly about it, that's really selfish to keep most of the money for yourself. Okay, I'm just saying. But Walz is incredible, right? So first of all, he knew about this for years. This is not brand new. He's known this for years, but has been afraid because he didn't want to have smack of racism, right? And some kind of anti-Somalian bent in Minnesota, because they're a really huge part of the Democratic Party in Minnesota. And there's an American Somali legislator who said the quiet part out loud. He said, look, the reason why this is ignored is because we are so powerful in the Democratic Party. And that there was an X account that we're not exactly 100% sure whether or not it was real or not, but there was an X account that purported to represent 500 people from Human Services in Minnesota who said they were threatened when they brought up this issue to Walz and his people. So yeah, that is an incredible indictment of Walz. But unbelievably, he was on Meet the Press, and they spent more time on Meet the Press talking about how President Trump called him a retard than they spent on this actual serious issue, the scandal of scandals in Minnesota. They spent more time talking about that stupid issue than this issue. And he took no responsibility for what went on. In fact, he went on the offense, and the host of Meet the Press had no follow-up questions, no pushback, no nothing. It was unbelievable. Look, there is an issue with the Somali community. Okay, I went there. I've been there actually a couple times interviewing the Somali community. There's an issue with assimilation. You just can't get away around it, okay? Where I asked them whether or not they should live under American law, Sharia law. They wanted to live in a Sharia law. They felt that Somalia was a better place for them if they're living here. And this is not really, again, an anti-Africa issue. Nigerian immigrants are among the most successful immigrants in our country, economically, education. It's not about that. Somalis just are not assimilating as other cultures are, and we have to look into that.
And you made the point that this is barely being covered on the mainstream media. Of course, New York Times reported on it, but looking at the coverage, ABC News Tonight didn't touch it. NBC's Nightly News, CBS Evening News also has not mentioned Tim Walz by name in the past week, Army, while all of this is going on and this is being revealed. This is according to reports out of Fox News. And they also didn't use the terms Somali or Somalian. They were not used in any of the 3 newscasts in the past week. And it's a huge part of this scandal, as you say. Look, let's listen to Caroline Levitt on Tim Walz.
About how Somali immigrants in Minnesota have been ripping off American taxpayers. In fact, 86 people have been charged in a rampant and widespread fraud scheme spanning multiple programs in Minnesota. Of those 86, 78 of those people are Somali, 91% of them charged. So far, 59 of those people have been convicted for their roles in fraud plots that have stolen $1 billion from taxpayers. In one scheme, and this is egregious, a nonprofit and its affiliates with these Somali migrants claimed to have fed tens of thousands of American children during the pandemic. They were reimbursed for those meals by taxpayers. However, federal prosecutors found that almost all of those meals were never even delivered to hungry children. In fact, those organizations' leaders spent the money on houses, luxury cars, and real estate in Turkey and Kenya.
I mean, this scandal is extraordinary, Army. Will Tim Walz be able to survive this? Surely he should be resigning.
Well, he's coming up for election, and the problem is Minnesota is a pretty blue state. I mean, Jacob Fry, the mayor of Minneapolis, is a full-on crazy person. He was giving a press conference, just broke into Somali like randomly. So will he survive? I mean, I think he might. I think he will survive because he's got allies in the Democratic Party and obviously allies in the media. If the media's not covering this, this is not going to break out and pick up enough steam for him to lose power. So yeah, I think he's going to survive. Unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
And he could have been the vice president Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Can
God.
you imagine
Oh,
that?
God.
I know. Now,
No,
let's
I
move on.
can't.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem also announced that she's recommending a sweeping travel ban on every country that she claims is sending dangerous people to the US. Now, this, of course, comes after that horrific attack last week on the eve of Thanksgiving, where an Afghan national allegedly shot 2 National Guard members in Washington, D.C., just blocks away from the White House. And Army, again, raising concerns around the vetting process under Biden. I'd like to get your thoughts on that and if the travel ban is the right move at the moment.
Look, it's a horrific story, obviously, from a number of angles. I do believe that the people who helped us in Afghanistan, right? This guy, for example, worked with the CIA, and he was part of a very special squad that helped the CIA take out guys who were killing our troops. I think those people should be looked at and strongly recommended to come to the U.S. through a vetting process, of course. The problem is the larger problem is that it seemed like he was radicalized here. And the blame game, the vetting, the not vetting, okay, it's a fair fight, fair argument. But the truth is that it seems like he was radicalized while he was here, which is a much, much bigger problem because you can ban people, right? You can have a travel ban. You can stop people from coming in here. The problem is that we already have a large group of people here, and if they're being radicalized internally, that is much more difficult to stop. Okay, that is a much, much larger problem for us. And we have to come to terms with our immigration process. I am pro-immigration. I am a product of immigration. Immigration is good for our country. It is necessary for our country. That doesn't mean everyone has a ticket to come here. Not everyone has a golden ticket. We have to be judicious on who we allow, who we don't allow, and that is not non-American to say our borders are open for everybody, okay? It's never the way we were, it's not the way we are, and it will not help us in the future if that's the tack we're gonna take like it was on the Democrats.
Yeah, well said. Look, finally, Mamdani, Socialist New York City Mayor-elect, Zoran Mamdani, he's less than a month away from being sworn in, and he's recently appointed Tamika Malloy, a defund the police activist, to his transition team. I'm shocked, Army. I didn't see that one coming. Can I get your reaction?
Yeah, I mean, look, this guy is going to give us fodder and things to talk about for 4 years. So in that way, I kind of appreciate him, okay? The problem is I live in New York. You don't, Gabriella, so I have to deal with this, and you don't have to. I mean, I'm not sure why we're talking about Tamika and her abolish the police policies, because Mamdani himself is abolish the police. You know, again, a couple of quotes that bear repeating. Mamdani, when asked about violent felonies, he said, violence is an artificial construct. No, it's not. He was asked about prison reform. He said, I don't know why we need prison. These are his direct quotes. Maybe my favorite, and the one that vexes me the most, I'm not even sure I fully understand it, was when he said, when the boot of the NYPD is on your throat, it's laced by the IDF. That's a twofer, right? I love that one because it's both anti-police and anti-Semitic. But no, Tamika is incredibly problematic, right? She is also a fan of Farrakhan, one of the great anti-Semites of the United States living today. And by the way, his entire team is full of these people. Basically, the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America, is their like farm team, right? I don't know if you guys know what that is in Australia, but it's a baseball term. Like that's where their recruiting arm for Mamdani's transition team. This guy, Alex Vitale, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. This guy is the OG Abolish the Police. He literally wrote the book on it when he wrote a book called End of Policing. This guy is on his transition team as well. Yeah, I think Mamdani's been fronting that I'm not a radical. Like, he's not fronting he's a centrist, but he's fronting like, I'm not a crazy radical. Yeah, nothing could be further from the truth. He is going to make Bill de Blasio look like Ronald Reagan. We are in for a ride.
Yeah, absolutely. Army Horowitz, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
It's time for Media Meltdowns, and Democrat Aftyn Behn, who's running to represent Nashville in Congress, has been on a media blitz. But despite some very obvious, straightforward questions, she cannot bring herself to admit that funding the police is a good thing.
Crime is, of course, also was a major issue in the presidential election, and I know there are some old posts. You've been asked about those old posts a number of times. My question for you today is whether more money for cops on the streets in the district you hope to represent would help fight crime. Would you like more money for more cops on the streets in your district?
So those past comments were at a time when I was a private citizen, as an activist and organizer, and now as a Tennessee lawmaker, I represent 40,000 individual opinions and political thought.
Right, so what do you think now? Would more money for cops be good or bad?
I think it depends on what the community wants. And so I've worked with communities, at least my constituents, want to ensure that there is investment in their community for community safety, community protection, mental health services. And that's what I'm hearing from at least my constituents.
All right. And then the CNN anchor just moves on. And this is what she's previously said.
Well, I'm currently involved in a transformative justice seminar, and so it's how to imagine a world without police and what that looks like and what community mechanisms look like, how people can not police themselves, but what, for example, if you experience sexual assault, like what is the reconciliation process and what does transformative justice look like? Because as we know, like you can't take those things to court, like, you know, our legal system is terrible when it comes to retribution. So anyways, all that to say is that like, I hope all of you, so one, I'll have a podcast on it, and I highly recommend, like, if it's been difficult for all of you to imagine a world without police, please tune in to maybe not this episode, but the next one, because I'll talk about, you know, things I'm learning and growing as an organizer, because I think, especially for those of us, you know, that are young, like, you know, and talking to our parents about what police abolition looks like, that, you know, we can do it, and there is a world.
Yeah, fantasizing about a world without police. This charming, rational woman also claims that she despises the city that she's running to represent in Congress.
I've been heavily involved with the Nashville mayoral race because I hate the city, I hate the bachelorettes, I hate the pedal taverns, I hate country music, I hate all of the things that make Nashville apparently an it city to the rest of the country, but I hate it. Yeah, I'm that girl at the airport that all these bachelorettes are giddy walking out in their two-toned colored Pantone pink shirts, and they walk out and I'm like, they're like, oh my God, Nashville, so bad. They're so loud.
And does she still hate Nashville?
I want to ask you about it because I'm wondering, do you think it was a mistake to say that?
Once again, I was a private citizen. Nashville is my home. Do I roll my eyes at the bachelorette parties and the pedal taverns that are blocking my access to my house? Yeah, every Nashvilleian does. But this race has always been about something bigger. It's about families across Middle Tennessee that are getting crushed by rising prices, while Washington politicians and billionaires argue about this type of nonsense.
Joining us now is CJ Pearson, RNC Youth Advisory Council co-chair. Yes, the answer is yes, she does still hate Nashville. I can't believe this. I mean, the Democrats really do an exceptional job of finding such unlikable candidates, don't they, CJ? Who also just give terrible interviews. But Aftyn Behn, she could at least do what Mamdani is doing now and pretending you're less woke and less crazy than you used to be. But she can't even answer direct questions, CJ.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Gabriella. And at least Zohran Mamdani pretended to love New York despite hating America. This woman can't even love Nashville, which is incredible to see. You know, to sit here on a national platform and say that you hate country music, you hate bachelorettes, everything that makes Nashville, Nashville, but yet somehow strive to be their congresswoman in the United States Congress. Well, I don't think that's going to go over too well with those voters. And so, honestly, I'll make a prediction here. I'm very confident that she will be roundedly defeated, and rightfully so.
Here is what Donald Trump had to say about her.
Taxes. She wants to raise your taxes on top of everything else. But she said two things above all else that bothered me. Number one, she hates Christianity. Number two, she hates country music. How the hell can you elect a person like that?
I mean, CJ, he's right. Donald Trump is right. It's a huge red flag when someone doesn't like country music. I'm in Australia, and I don't think I know anyone who doesn't love the country music coming from America.
No, if even the Aussies like the country music coming from America, you gotta, if you're gonna live in Nashville and represent the people of Nashville, you've got to love a little bit of Riley Green, Morgan Wallen, and maybe we'll throw in some Cole Swindell there. He's a Georgia boy. And so, it's absolutely goes to show they're running those inauthentic candidates that they have, and people who are just brazenly out of touch with the actual, the people of this city and that state. And so, again, I hope that the people of Nashville will see through this farce and will see through her George Soros funded campaign. And I think elect a Republican nominee who I think will have a great night tonight.
CJ, let's talk about the fake news. And I know I put you through a lot of crazy left-wing media, and I'm sorry for it, but this is wild. The stories that the media are running with at the moment. The New York Times has been pushing a story claiming that there are signs of fatigue when it comes to Donald Trump. I mean, what a load of BS. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has blasted the New York Times correspondent Katie Rogers for this. And if you want to look at someone struggling with fatigue, let's look at Joe Biden. So, CJ, while this was going on, while the world was watching Joe Biden's sad, obvious decline, the media was covering it up. The media was complicit in the cover-up. And now we have Donald Trump, who was full of energy. He's the most entertaining president, as well as probably the most successful that we've ever seen. And they're running stories saying that there are signs of fatigue.
It's absolutely insane, especially after going through 4 years of a Joe Biden presidency where that man's biggest fears were President Donald Trump and a flight of stairs. And we want to sit here and pretend as if Donald Trump is losing his faculties. It is absolutely insane. But what's incredible about this story is the media can't quite figure out which narrative they want to push. Is this a man who has too much energy or a man who has not enough? Because just yesterday, I read a story from Axios, where they said that President Trump was unwell because he tweeted 100 times between the hours of 12 and 5 a.m. Now, I got to tell you, I was asleep during that time. So if this president can stay up and speak about the issues that are going on in America and across the world with the vitality that he does, the energy that he does, then I think that he's going to be A-okay. And I think many people see that every time they see this president go up to the podium, go up to a mic and speak to the issues that are on the minds of the American people.
Well said. Well, here is Donald Trump speaking to the media today.
But you always find something new, like, is he in good health? Biden was great, but is Trump in good health? I sit here, I do 4 news conferences a day. I ask questions from very intelligent lunatics, you people. I give the right answers. There's never a scandal. There's never a problem. I give you answers that solve your little problems. You go back and you can't find anything, but you do stories about Biden was in wonderful health. The guy didn't do a news conference for 8 months. If I go one day, I had one day where I didn't do a news conference, there's something wrong with the president.
He is right. I mean, he will hold long press conferences, he'll bring camera operators and reporters into cabinet meetings for hours, give so much access, and it's not enough.
It's never enough for these people, and nothing will ever be enough for these people because they have their pre-baked narratives that they're looking to perpetuate about this president, that somehow he is not rising to the occasion, that he's not the strong commander-in-chief that we know him to be. But the American people see through it because we know him and we know his leadership and we know the results that he's brought about. We would not be in the place that we are in the world. We would not be in the place that we are as a country right now without his leadership, which is all in all the time. And so, to be quite frank, all of this entire, hoopla about is the president okay? Is he doing well? He's doing more than well. He's doing exceptional.
Well said. Now, onto another story. The Department of Homeland Security has revealed an illegal immigrant allegedly responsible for a fatal crash that killed 2 people in Oregon was given a commercial driver's license by California, of course, which is under Governor Gavin Newsom. Now, the agency also said that the illegal was led into the country and given work authorization by the Biden administration. But CJ, this continues a spate of several high-profile accidents involving, illegals that were issued driver's licenses by sanctuary states just a few months ago in August. An illegal immigrant driving a semi-truck made an illegal U-turn in Florida, which resulted in people being killed. Can I get your reaction to this?
You know, it's incredibly troubling, and I hope that the families of these victims will sue, folks like Governor Gavin Newsom and others responsible for everything that they're worth, because they deserve justice and they deserve reprieve. All of these people, let's be quite frank, need to be deported from this country. It's exactly why when people say, oh, we just need to target criminal illegal aliens, I roll my eyes, because breaking into this country, invading this country, is a crime within itself. And so you've already committed a crime. You're already a criminal illegal alien in my eyes, in the eyes of the American people. So let's send you back from where you came. Simple as that. And so when I look at Gavin Newsom saying he's going to run for president, I don't think the families of these victims will be all that eager to support his candidacy anytime soon.
CJ Pearson, RNC Youth Advisory Council co-chair, thank you so much for joining us.
Good to see you, my friend.
Joining us now is comedian Alex Stein. Alex, it is great to see you again.
Always a pleasure. I love coming on here, Gabriella. It's been too long. I'm happy. I feel like I've missed you, so I'm happy to be back.
We've missed you as well. There's so much to talk about, but let's start with Tim Walz. He's been accused of ignoring warnings amid this massive fraud scandal in his state. Hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars funding lavish lifestyles, going overseas to different people, and reportedly in the hands of terrorists. And of course, many of the people charged in this scandal, they're part of the Somali community. And Tim Walz was asked about this, asked about the fraud scandal, and his answer was, we can't demonize a certain group. That's an interesting thing to say, given the comments he's made in the past. Let's listen to him.
And this type of language, well, maybe it's time for us to be a little meaner. And when it's adult like Donald Trump, you bully the out of him back. What we should demonize is people like Elon Musk.
Although I will say this, the last few days you woke up thinking there might be news. Just saying. There will be news sometime, just so you know, there will be news.
Alex, he's sick. I mean, last year we watched the media really try to pump him up, saying he was a moderate and he's just, the nice guy. And really, he's kind of promoting violence.
Oh, 100%. And you look at what's happening to his state. It's the whole culture is totally different. And let's just talk about Tim Walz for a second. He lied about how when he was in battle, he carried a gun. When really he was a reserve in Europe that never even had to fire one shot in his entire military service. So the guy's a liar. He's a fraud, has a lot of connections to China. Now he's, basically doing the legwork for Somalia. So this guy cares about America last. He's not an American first candidate. And we know this because he's a Democrat. But what I like about this is that the Dems are finally turning on Tampon Tim right now. So it's good to see the left eat their own. And, the fact that he's a fraud, we knew he was a fraud during his campaign. So I'm not surprised whatsoever that he's involved in some nefarious activity.
Look, it's interesting you say the Dems are turning on him. We'll wait and see how many. I was speaking earlier on the show with Amy Horowitz, and we were talking about, as we all learn more about this scandal, some parts of the media, the leftist media, they don't want to touch it. They want to keep protecting Tim Walz. I mean, ABC's World News Tonight, NBC's Nightly News, and CBS Evening News have not mentioned Tim Walz by name in the past week, according to reports. They also haven't mentioned the terms Somalia and Somalian. They were not used in any of the 3 network newscasts. I mean, it's a huge part of the story.
It's like a huge story, but that's what the Mockingbird media is here in America. And when you talk about the Mockingbird media, in the 60s, it was declassified that there's CIA representatives in every form of media here in America. So I'm telling you, these CBS, all of these legacy media outlets not covering this, it's because it goes against the narrative that they want the American people to hear and see. So once again, the news that we get in America is fake, and I am very thankful that we have people like yourselves at Sky News Australia that will actually cover this, because this is a blatant cover-up to protect their own party, when in reality the news is supposed to be unbiased, but that's not the reality of the situation.
Yeah, it is. It's of course supposed to be. Alex, I want to get your thoughts on the FBI Director Kash Patel, because the New York Post is reporting that FBI Director Kash Patel and his deputy Dan Bongino are facing criticism from an alliance of active duty and retired agents days after the White House denied reports that the president could be firing Kash Patel. Now, Patel apparently has been criticised over his behaviour in Salt Lake City after Charlie Kirk's assassination. He's accused of giving premature public remarks that potentially jeopardise the investigation. I want to get your thoughts on this. Kash Patel, he recently gave an interview about Thomas Crooks, who's of course accused of trying to assassinate Donald Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania. But he gave that interview after reports from the New York Post and others about Thomas Crooks, and they exposed parts of Thomas Crooks' online history. I think many Americans would just like more answers, more transparency. What do you make of this report?
You know, this is a tough question because I'm friends with Kash. I've known Kash for, a few years now, and I like Kash personally. But when you get nominated to be the top cop, the head of the FBI, this is a position where most of the people there are not going to be happy. They're not going to like that you basically usurp their power because these people have been working at the agency for 20 years. And, you are basically a podcaster with your Dan Bongino or Kash Patel. So I can see how as soon as they got in there was going to be a lot of friction. But when it comes to what they've done while they've been in office, while they have been, leading the FBI, nobody's satisfied with any of the transparency surrounding Charlie Kirk, surrounding Thomas Crooks, surrounding the Epstein files. It's been a terrible disaster. And to add insult to injury, which I love Kash, and I'm good friends with his girlfriend, Alexis Wilkins, now they're filing a lawsuit against podcasters that are critiquing them. So I think that, once you are in the spotlight and to the level that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino is, even their loved ones, they're going to catch some strays, and I really don't think it's a good look for Kash Patel to be suing, mid-level podcasters. So there's a lot of issues that need to be corrected. I hope he doesn't lose his job. I hope he has time to fix it. But, so far their resume has not been very good.
I agree with you. I really do. Now, let's talk about Rosie O'Donnell, a favourite. And she's given her kids Trump derangement syndrome, TDS, and she's blaming it on Donald Trump. Listen to this.
My daughter is now saying, damn him, damn Trump, and smashing her hand on the table. And I said, wow, honey, what are you thinking? And she said, he made us move in order for our own safety. And it's now he's destroying the country. Listen, wow. She lives here. She hears what I'm saying to you. Not that I go around speaking like this every day if it's not an interview, but I think to myself, you don't want to give this to her. Whatever this thing.
She does. She does go around speaking like that every day. We've heard too much of her. The poor children listening to Rosie O'Donnell every day on the, in a different country and still getting, worse and worse TDS.
No, they've definitely been brainwashed by their mother. And I miss the Rosie O'Donnell who used to have the #1 hit show that used to be funny, that used to be laughable. Because, for a female comedian, Rosie O'Donnell was at the top of her game at one point, and now she has such bad Trump derangement syndrome, her children are being infected by it. So she needs to go back to being funny and try to make her kids laugh. And you know what? As her daughter, I probably would be a little frustrated if they had to move, and my mom told me that I was constantly under threat. So, I'm very empathetic to her young daughter for all the trauma-based mind control that her mother has put her through.
Alex. Now we're getting to Christmas, the best time of the year, of course. But if we need any reminding that the White House got an upgrade this year, this is how Melania is celebrating Christmas. Look at this video. It's beautiful. Melania has so much class. Decorations are absolutely beautiful. But if we need reminding that this woke era is over, let's just look at what Jill Biden did to promote Christmas. so bad. Alex, you can't compare it.
No, I mean, I will be honest. I do not think there was enough drag queens in Melania's Christmas debut. That's the one thing that we're missing. We need about 10 more drag queens. No, and the reality of the situation, you could maybe critique Donald Trump on some things. I think there's some fair criticism, but when it comes to style and class and design and just, making stuff beautiful, Donald Trump is an expert when it comes to just making stuff look nice. And, I think people were criticizing how nice he made the Oval Office look. I think it looks awesome with all the gold. So Melania and Trump, you had to give it to them. They're first class all the way when it comes to decorating.
They absolutely are. And the White House has thrown its first Christmas party. Here's Donald Trump.
I just want to let you know it's an honor for me to be your president. The people in this room, you took the place of a lot of people that wanted to be here, so I congratulate you. You either had friends or relatives or somebody that got you in here. How are you, my friend? Look at him. But it's an honor to be your president. We're going to do a great job. And, we have a little more than 3 years left, and 3 years for Trump is an eternity. That's a long period of time. But you're very special, and this is a very, very special place.
An eternity of President Trump. Watch the media go into meltdown about that, Alex.
Well, they are going to get mad because, that is the rumor that Donald Trump is, he's going to secretly run for vice president with J.D. Vance, and then he can kind of be the de facto president for another 4 years or potentially 8 years if J.D. Vance runs twice. So I don't know if any of that is going to happen, but I do know that Donald Trump has 3 years, and I hope that these next 3 years he makes America great again because I'll be honest, the first year has not been excellent. I would say it's probably been a B. We need to get back into the A's, Donald. We really got to, make this country great again.
Finally, Charlie Kirk is now in Times Square in New York City. He's being seen by thousands of people. Let's take a look at this clip. I mean, New York City just got a little bit brighter with this vision of Charlie Kirk. There he is. Thousands of people would be seeing it every single day. Alex, I think what I love about this is that there are, of course, Americans who we had to watch, who were celebrating and mocking the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And I think some of those crazy, deranged people will have to walk past and they'll look up and they'll see Charlie.
Now you go around and Charlie Kirk is more famous than he ever was when he was alive, which is, it's a sad thing. It's a good thing. And people seeing him up there, I hope it'll kind of encourage him to be more outspoken and to be unapologetically themselves, because Charlie was not a bigot. He was not a racist. He was not all of the labels that they try to, put on him. But one thing he was a free speech absolutist. So, we need more people that are willing to have tough conversations. And I love that he's in New York City. That's a place that they need some good faith-based leadership, and the reminder of Charlie I think that'll be a positive influence on a city that's really gone to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah, they need it, absolutely. Alex Stein, so great to see you. Thank you so much for your time.
Always a pleasure. Talk to you guys again soon.
Let's cross to London now, where we are joined by Andrew Eborn, broadcaster, barrister, and president of Octopus TV. Andrew, it's wonderful to see you.
It's always wonderful to see you, Gabriella.
Let's start with Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. He's officially been stripped of his final royal titles, the prestigious Order of the Garter and his Knight of the Grand Cross of the Royal Victoria Order. This is probably the final blow for the former prince, would you say?
Well, I'll tell you what's happening. It's we're stripping, aren't we? Just to give us something extra to talk about every time I come on your wonderful programme. But yes, the Garter is gone. Andrew's axed from the ancient order, and King Charles has delivered the ultimate royal rebuke. He's basically got two things which have gone: the Order of the Garter and his Knight of the Grand Cross of the Royal Victoria Order. Basically what's happened is King Charles has ordered the removal of the royal title on Monday, just over a month after Buckingham Palace announced that the king had brought down the axe on his younger brother. What happens, the Order of the Garter is the most senior order of chivalry in Britain. It was awarded to Andrew, who's now 65, in 2006. And he held the Knight of the Grand Cross of Royal Victoria since 2011. What's also happened, just to add to the humiliation, his coat of arms, which is linked to the Order of the Garter, was removed from St. George's Chapel in Windsor last month.
Wow.
He has got just one precious title remaining, which is a Vice Admiral of the Royal Navy. And he was awarded this honorary title in 2015 to mark his 55th birthday. But I guarantee, just to keep us all on the edge of our seats, that will probably be gone even by this time next week. But the people who remove it, it's not the king, but rather the government.
Okay. Now, there's also a few reports around that Andrew Windsor's eviction from Royal Lodge could be delayed, and that could be because he's struggling to downsize. There are also reports that he's insisting on a 6 or 7 bedroom house, complete with a full roster of staff, in exchange for finally vacating Royal Lodge. I mean, is that true, Andrew? What can you tell us?
Well, absolutely. As I predicted on your very show, it's going to be after Christmas, most likely to be February. He's lived there forever. And anybody who knows when they move from a very large property, and it is enormous, 30, some people say 31 different rooms there, 7 bedrooms. He's lived there for a long time. He's got a lot of stuff, not least his 72 teddy bears. Which he's going to have to move. And as we've talked about before, they need to be arranged in a very particular order every time. And staff have talked about they receive specific instructions and even a laminated picture to make sure the bears are positioned correctly on the bed in his room. But what's happening? He's got to move, and it's going to take a very long time. So I predict it will be after Christmas, most likely to be in February once he's packed everything up. But you're right, he's demanding all sorts of things, including a very large property, still a large property for most sort of people, and he wants all of the staff to go with it. So he's not giving up yet. And as you say, we talked about this previously, his Royal Lodge lease was an ironclad one. He had it for a very long period of time, paid a peppercorn rent, having paid $1 million, and was supposed to be responsible for the upkeep. Apparently he might have failed to do the upkeep, so there might be grounds there. But he's insisting on a similarly large, well, a large property and basically lots of staff to go with it.
Yeah, those demands are extraordinary. Let's talk about the King and Prince Harry and their relationship. Of course, they last met in person in September, and there have been questions as to whether they'll meet again when the King and Queen visit America next year. But Andrew, it's not likely.
Well, I think this is the problem, isn't it? What tends to happen, they never want to be upstaged. And apparently King Charles is not going to make a detour to go to Montecito. And it's unlikely that Harry will go and join him, because what will then happen, he will dominate the headlines to celebrate what's happening is the 250th anniversary. Donald Trump made it very clear that he would be delighted to welcome the king with the pomp and ceremony to do that celebration. It's quite an extraordinary thing, talking about independence, and that's what they do. They invite the monarch over, but there you go. But he was very, very keen to show off the wonderful hospitality that President Trump can offer. There was talk about William and Kate joining him, but that's probably unlikely. I think it's more likely they might go to the football in the summer, because again, it's an invitation to the king. That'll be the focus. But almost certainly there's not going to be a detour to go and see the Montecito Madness.
Now, what about Meghan Markle and her brand as ever? She's, of course, promoting it nonstop on her social media feeds, but there are reports that there are questions, I should say, over how much she's actually selling. There are, according to brand intelligence platforms, the Duchess of Sussex's online store is really struggling with traffic, Andrew.
Well, this is the thing. We were all told previously it sold out all these wonderful scam jams and honey and candles and so on and so forth. What's happening? This wonderful brand intelligence platform called SimilarWeb, what they did a comparison between the Duchess of Sussex, the wonderful Meghan on store, and Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop. I'm sure you've got lots of Goop product. And they looked at this in October. And what happens, they basically said they were pretty poor in comparison, looking at the sort of figures. So what happened, they did a reported website, and they can do the number of page views in October. Now, Meghan managed what sounds magnificent, 746,592 pages. But when you look at Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop, she did 2.3 million.
Wow.
The Montecito Madness, well, she'll be spitting feathers over that one and throwing up those edible flowers in disgust. She doesn't like competition. And Gwyneth Paltrow is undoubtedly stonking into the lead.
Now, let's talk about Prince William and Princess Catherine. Of course, their family moved to Forest Lodge, an 8-bedroom mansion located 15 minutes from their previous home, Adelaide Cottage. They're all settled in and they're putting in the finishing touches, decorating the property just in time for Christmas. But local residents, they're not all too happy about the security perimeter surrounding their forever home. It means that there's been a bit of a traffic headache. What can you tell us about this and what's being said?
Well, it's exactly that. There is this sort of traffic headache. They moved in early November, again, as we predicted on this programme. It's Forest Lodge. It's an 8-bedroom Georgian mansion. It's located just about 15 minutes from Adelaide Cottage, their previous home. Now they're all settled in. What's happening? They're putting up the decorations. They're getting rid of the Christmas tree. But for local residents, they've got the security perimeter because they're very worried within their forever home that people will be peering through the net curtains and having a look. And apparently there's a Christmas tree shop which is very, very close to Forest Lodge. It was opened for the season on November the 27th. But in an effort to protect their privacy and prevent cars from passing and peeking through those curtains, as they say, they basically have got to do virtually a 1-mile round trip, is what they're saying. So the residents are not very happy about that one.
Now, Christmas is, of course, approaching. The British royal family often gathers at Sandringham Estate in Norfolk for a Christmas celebration. But can you talk to us about their schedule this year and other traditions as part of the royal family?
Well, they do. They have the wonderful, extraordinary things. Every December, the British royal family, they gathers at Sandringham Estate, as we say, in Norfolk, for the Christmas celebrations. But they have all sorts of weird practices, some dating back to Queen Victoria's reign. What happens? I'll let you into a few of the secrets. The royals arrive in order of seniority. And the reason for this is they don't want to keep the most senior person, which is obviously King Charles and Camilla. They don't want to keep them waiting. So that's what they do. A rather bizarre practice, which we should all do, is they get weighed before and after dinner. And what happens, they have to say, it was a practice which was introduced by King Edward VII. He wanted proof that his guests had properly indulged in the lavish multi-course feast and ideally had gained at least 3 pounds. Diana was apparently incredibly uncomfortable about doing that sort of side. The other things they do, they open their Christmas presents on Christmas Eve. And the idea is those presents are supposed to be terrible. They're supposed to be cheap and funny. And give you some example, Princess Anne gave Prince Charles a leather toilet seat. Princess Diana presented Sarah Ferguson with a leopard print bath mat. And Prince William's wrapping slippers. He had his grandmother, the late Queen's face on them. Prince Harry described these gifts exchanged in his memoir as a free-for-all. And for the purpose of these programs, I had a look at some of these gifts that he might have. So this year, here's a little doll. This is Princess Catherine. You've got one of these. You can hang on these. This looks pretty awful, doesn't it? You've got one of those over there like that. But the most extraordinary one I found was good old William himself. Look at that. Together with a rather sad receding hairline. And the wonderful thing about these sort of things, they're all made in China.
Okay, thank you so much. There you go. I was not expecting that, but expect the unexpected with you, Andrew Eborn. I absolutely love it. Look, I like the tradition of opening presents on Christmas Eve. I think that's because I'm a little bit too eager. But finally, Queen Mary of Denmark, she shared a charming behind-the-scenes glimpse of her family decorating their Christmas tree. And fans are quick to point out a sweet nod to her Australian roots. That is an ornament shaped like the Sydney Opera House, a tribute to the place she once called home. We, of course, we love Queen Mary because she's one of our own.
Yeah, absolutely. And this was a little hint. So we've got that glorious video, which is out there on social media. And she put up a special Australian ornament on her Christmas tree to give, while she was giving this sort of rare look inside her palace. She was joined by her husband, Frederick X, who's 57, their children, Crown Prince Christian, 20, Princess Isabella, 18, and 14-year-old twins, Prince Vincent and Princess Josephine. And what they had, you see, one of the baubles that they had that they put on was in fact Sydney Opera House. Has a wonderful sort of nod to her background there. And they also introduced their wonderful border collie Coco and showed us, as we all do at these sort of Christmas things, the smashed bauble on the floor. It shows the real sort of likability and the down-to-earthness of Queen Mary, and wonderful that she sort of celebrates her Australian heritage as a result.
Absolutely. Andrew Eborn, barrister, broadcaster, president of Octopus TV, thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour. Always so much fun.
It's always fun. Look forward to seeing you next week.
That is Power Hour. Thank you for your company. We'll see you tomorrow. Make sure you subscribe to Sky News Australia on YouTube.